Hey, AP class. Welcome to our first official day of distance learning. Their first assignment will be, apart from emailing me, hopefully you already did that that you read the expectations for distance learning, which is posted on my DJO homepage and my pacing guide as well. So once you've done that, easy 5 points, you will go to Google Classroom and hopefully you've already reviewed the PowerPoint on the 19th century isms. So the very first actual assignment, apart from the 5 point one, is to watch the video, The 19th Century Isms by Paul Sargent. It'll be posted on Edpuzzle, which I'll post and post the link on Google Classroom. So just go to Google Classroom and you will click on the link to the Edpuzzle. It's a short video, I think just about 8 minutes. There's like 4 or 5 questions, answer that, and then submit it. And then once you do that, you will look at the graphic organizer on the first and second industrial revolution. So you know about the first industrial revolution and a lot of it on the second already. But we're going to do the first one together, and then you're going to do the second on your own. So just as a really quick recap, remember the first industrial revolution started in Great Britain. If you need to review on why it started there, don't forget you have your chart that we watched from the PowerPoint, as well as we did a web quest on this as well. So the first industrial revolution started around 1760 to about 1830. Now it's important to note that the Industrial Revolution isn't like one set event. It's ongoing. In fact, many historians argue that it's still going today. It just changes depending on the time period. But for AP sakes, we will split it into 2 periods. The first being in the 18th century into the 19th century, and the second being in the 19th century into the 20th century, leading up to World War I. So our methods of production in the first industrial revolution is really so physical labor, and also really relying on animal labor, um, which will then lead us to machine for our methods of production. Um, we'll start to see factories, as you know, and different inventions, which we'll get to in a second. So the thing that we're looking at the most initially in order to produce is textiles. So our textiles really being for clothing. So our main power source that we'll see, um, oops, excuse me, I spelled textiles wrong, will initially be water-based. Then we'll see it switch to coal. One of the reasons being why the first industrial revolution started in Great Britain is that Great Britain had an abundance of coal found there naturally. And then we'll see steam, which leads us into our engines. So it'll be the steam engine. And remember, the steam engine wasn't initially actually invented here, but it was enhanced and improved upon to the steam engine that we know about today. So it's important to recognize that here. So the inventions during the Industrial Revolution, we're going to focus on some main ones. The first being the spinning jenny, which I'm sure you remember. So the spinning jenny used 8 spindles in order to produce a larger quantity of yarn in a shorter time period. But it wasn't about quality here, it was more about quantity, so it's still very thin. That didn't change until we got to the water frame. The water frame was more about using better quality thread, so the thread was now stronger and thicker, but it couldn't produce as much as a spinning jenny, but the quality of the thread did improve with the water frame. And then we have the spinning mule. Now the spinning mule combined both the elements from the spinning jenny of producing textiles, so that yarn in a higher quantity, and the quality that was done through the water frame, and combine it into one with the spinning mule. So it's basically a power loom. combining those two previous inventions. And then we get to the cotton gin, which was able to separate the seed from the actual cotton using a machine rather than having to hand pick, which was able to massively increase the production of cotton, particularly when we get into the Americas, but we'll discuss that later. And then we also have the steam engine, which was important, the new and enhanced and improved steam engine, because it removed the water from mines in order to acquire the coal that was needed to use for things like trains and other machinery. So now our standards of living at this time in particular here, we're looking at the working class. So it was, for most of the population here, it was really awful. The conditions, as you guys remember, were long, really poor conditions. Children would be working, women would be working. A lot of times there'd be no clean air. They'd be spending lots of times in unfiltered air with little to no breaks and access to medication, things like that. And then we really see this change, which is why it's key to note the first industrial revolution time period, 1830. After when we start to get to the 30s and the 1800s, we really start to see the creation of the poor laws, child labor laws, some of the corn laws, that's helping society, its quality of life change as a whole. It wasn't perfect, but it did start to get better after 1830. So now that we did the left side together, you can see it was pretty quick and easy. You can do the exact same on the right-hand side of the chart. Feel free to elaborate if you want to. It is not required. It can be basic, just like I did on the left side. But if you want to add more on the right side, it's just better for you in your notes if you can do that, or if you just remember it and you can fill it out really quickly, that's fine as well. So now that you're completed the chart, you're going to click on this link, which will bring you to a video on, I'm going to mute it real quick, or pause it, excuse me. Well, anyway, I'm going to go to that. That brings you to a video on military technologies in the second industrial revolution by Tom Ritchie. And so I want you to watch this video after you fill out the chart and then summarize the main points of it in at least 5 sentences. And that summarization is going to be posted onto Google Classroom under what I'm calling the question prompt. So I'm basically, it's not going to be in question form, but it'll be a prompt, a statement, and then you'll post your summary onto Google Classroom. And then you will make a second post that will be a response to a fellow student onto Google Classroom. So you have your initial at least 5 sentences post on the discussion, and then your response. Now your response can't just be like, that's a great point, or I agree. It needs to enhance the conversation, so it could further explain something on someone, or maybe someone left out something. You can, it needs to be thought-provoking and add to the conversation as a whole, not just regurgitating the same thing that somebody else said. So that will be posted onto Google Classroom. And so your initial assignments, apart from the 5-point email, will be to watch the Edpuzzle on the isms of the 19th century, then to fill out this chart, and then to post your initial post and response onto Google Classroom under the question prompt. So all of these things will be due by Monday 9 p.m. Remember, it's required that all deadlines are due no later than 9 p.m. So you'll have Thursday into Monday to complete these. This, again, the isms video is really short. It's about 8 minutes. This chart will be pretty quick unless you don't really remember the second industrial revolution. It shouldn't take you very long. And then your post, watching the video, this is also a short video, shouldn't take you long as well. So you should be able to do all three, I think, in 45 minutes. And so you have Thursday, Friday, and Monday until 9 p.m. to complete it. And don't forget your chapter 26. Chapter questions are due on Friday. So if you have any questions on what's coming up, I will be posting another video on Monday because we have our DBQ to finish. I know you have, hopefully you still have the packet and your notes on the documents. I will post the packet again as well in case for some reason it ran off or you just don't have it. And you'll be writing your first draft next week on your DBQ. And then you'll have your reading questions for chapter 27 next week as well. So I'll post another video on Monday to go over what I want from you for just the draft for the DBQ next week. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to message me either via email, Remind, or DM me on my teacher account on Instagram. Have a great day.